Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm Brent Atthill. I'm the managing director for RMI Analytics, and this is our first ever podcast pursuing the perfect pint. We'll fill you in a
Exciting.
bit more on what we're doing and why we're doing this. But first of all, I'd like to introduce Danielle Bekker, who is a former colleague of mine from SAB Miller days, who we stay in touch with, and she certainly helps us a lot in driving RMI's strategic vision. So, Danielle, thanks to our first podcast.
Yeah, it's brilliant to join us. But first, Brent, you have to ask you, why are you starting a podcast? I mean, passion, interest?
Well, I think there's a couple things. We'll get in a bit more to why we do it. The one thing I said in different speaking opportunities is we do have a bit of an identity crisis for malt. Many brewers will talk endlessly about hops and all the value that hops plays in beers. We don't find as much interest or maybe not as much knowledge on the malt contribution to beers. And given what RMI does and through our travels around the world, we see virtually every day all the work that's being done in the world of malt and all things related to that, including farmers and barley and so on. I think we're kind of in position to maybe get some of those stories fleshed out and shared. And it's maybe just a role that RMI can fulfill as part of what we do on a regular basis, anyways.
And I think a lot of people would love to hear some of those great stories from across the supply chain, delivered to their doorstep through a podcast. But for people who
Sure.
don't know, maybe what are RMI all about?
Well, yeah, it's probably not to jump too far ahead. In the simplest of terms, RMI has always been about two things. We provide insights. So we publish a journal twice a month. We publish some special reports. We do some advisory work, all in the field of the malt supply chain. That's the one big thing we do. The other big thing we've been doing is we get people together. So hosting networking events, which is our global conference that we do every 2 years, coming up in March of 26 in Lisbon. We do some regional reports, which allows us to get a little deeper into the supply chain and actually start to see some of those success stories up close and personal. So we kind of have those two things that we've been doing, and we think we can always improve, but we continue to enhance those things. But it really kind of came about that maybe the third piece that we should do is the storytelling piece, where we're bringing to life those stories that we come in contact with, and I guess it's needed in my view that work should be acknowledged and those stories shared, because there's a huge amount of work being done, and we can put some light on it.
Yeah.
The whiskey production.
Those sound like quite a wide range of services, Brent. But for those who don't know you, why is there a Canadian who feels in the position to be offering all these services for the malt and barley supply chain?
Well, I guess part of the answer lies if you've been around long enough, I guess you get the experience and you build a network of people that probably gives you the access to many of these stories. So my roadmap has been, yes, born and raised in Canada and started in the malting industry in Canada, but that led me to some time in the US in the malting industry, and then I went over to the brewing side with Miller, Coors. SAB Miller brought me to Switzerland for a global procurement in malts. That also spent some time in South Africa, as you know, and then some time when ABI took over and acquired SAB Miller. So all those things, and now working with RMI every week, I'm talking to people that I've met over the years, and that helps me fill the insights. It helps me plan the events that we're doing, getting interesting speakers to participate and so on. Probably as much as most people find, your network is probably the most important thing in whatever you do, and you should continually foster your network, and with that, you'll be amazed kind of what you can accomplish.
I mean, to be honest, Brent, I think there's very few people in the molten supply chain that you don't know or who don't know who you are. So that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
No,
yeah, yeah.
I mean, I was
Well,
sorry.
so I was going to say, I used to say, I've got 25 years of experience, but I've had to recently bump it to 30 years, and it was a it was a breakthrough moment that I had to make that had to make that step over. Which so I'm looking forward to 35 years of experience, but I got a bit of time for that.
Yeah, actually, it's true. It's quite a big milestone in the thing when you start saying 30 rather than 20 or 25. So, Brent, I was lucky enough to hear you speak in Paris, and I think it really struck home to me how you were talking about some of the challenges that a lot of the major brewers and distillers are facing. And now, having seen some of the half year results, you seen that any differently?
Un- Unfortunately, we did the Paris summit back in May. the numbers weren't very good, and they've actually worsened slightly at the half year. So we see volumes down. Uh, we see revenues are still positive, but not as much as they were before, and margin for the big brewers is being maintained. But at the moment, it still is I think the price increases for beer have been quite severe, and we're certainly seeing the volume decline associated with that. So that's been bad news for beer. On the beer side, we're the third year of reduction. The other big disruption at the moment is from the whiskey production side. Distillers are dramatically cutting back on production of whiskey, whether it be Scotch whiskey or Irish whiskey. It's an inventory rebalancing situation, but it's severe in the magnitude of 20 to 30%, depending on who you talk to. The malt industry's been impacted by those two factors: 3 years of beer volume decline, now a whiskey disruption, curtailment, and that has implications all the way back through the supply chain to
Yeah.
maltsters, all the way back to farmers with barley and so on. So it's turning out to be uh, a pretty dismal 2025. I'm an optimist by nature, and
Yeah.
I tell people it's a tough time to be optimistic. So that's difficult for an optimist to say.
So, I mean, if people wanted to know a little bit more around, is this a now issue, or where might we be in kind of 10 years' time? Where can people learn more from RMI?
Well, the events we do, of course, we have the subscriptions we do, so we update people on that. We have the events, so we do the conference year, which I mentioned. We do that every 2 years. So Lisbon's coming up end of March, 24th, 25th, 26th in beautiful Lisbon. So people can attend that event. There'll be participants from around the world there, all from the malt supply chain, senior stakeholders that are really driving a lot of the great stories that we're going to profile going forward, and kind of telling us where they're thinking
Yeah.
and spending their efforts on the supply chain going forward. And beyond that, the subscriptions, as I say, and special reports that we do will detail a bit more what I talked about and what we envision. It's not easy to predict the future. I would just add the recession type environment we're in now is completely different than anything we've seen. If you go back to 2008, the 2008, 2009, the global financial crisis, which was the potential failure of banks and all the stimulus that went into that. When you actually look at beer volumes back then, beer didn't decline at all.
Yeah.
And that kind of reinforced that beer was a bit recession proof. We're now seeing through this pandemic led thing and the inflation result that came along with it. It's a different type of recession. It's inflation led. And we've now we're seeing a third year decline, as I say. So we're in a much different environment at the moment. And how we come out of that is not so clear. We came out of 2009 rather well. We just haven't seen it yet on the current situation. But I still would think there's some recovery coming.
Yeah.
We talk about it a bit. We're just kind of in uncharted territory at the moment.
And I think what's interesting to see, which I suppose is what you kind of picking up with all your visits and discussions with people, and hopefully going to see some more in Lisbon, but just is, how people are responding to that. Kind of what are they doing in the supply chain to try and deal with these changes? And are they coming out of Bali, staying in Bali, finding other opportunities? So I think it's going to be very interesting.
Yep, all the way across. Farmers will have to decide whether they continue to grow barley. Maltsters will unfortunately have to make some very tough decisions around rationalizing and closing some capacity, some of it permanently, some of it may be temporary. It all will depend on whether we can trigger a volume recovery. Volume would fix everything.
Yeah, volume fixes everything.
Like any business, it doesn't necessarily have to be
Yeah.
beer or whiskey, but if you're any business and you sell more whatevers, then it certainly helps. But when you're in a third year of decline,
Yeah.
um, it's very difficult. So yeah, but the industry is very resilient, and I don't have any doubts that they'll forge on. It's just going to be hard work.
Brilliant. And I think we're looking forward to hearing the next podcast where you're going to be talking to people around these topics and doing a bit
Yep.
of a deeper dive into some of these challenges.
Yep, and it'll be from around the world. I was just at Drink Tech, and we've got people from around the world like the idea and happy to share. So we'll be tapping into our network, and anyone that has ideas can reach out to us at info@RMI, and we can add it to the pipeline. So, yep, we got to get started. So this is the start, and more to follow.
That all sounds very exciting, and I think people are going to be looking forward to hearing how you delve into some of these challenges with future speakers. And all of this is in pursuit of the perfect pint.
Yep. So the journey is just beginning, and we've got lots of content to share, all surrounding the pursuit of the perfect pint. And we're going to do that through all those people we talked about and all those stories that we have to share. Stay tuned for more on how our pursuit of the perfect pint is coming along.
Sounds brilliant. Cheers.
Cheers to the perfect pint.